still remember the sound my name made when it was called that morning. Flat, cold, like it didn't belong to me anymore. "Step forward," Mr. Grayson said, not even looking up from the file in his hands. My palms were sweating as I stood in front of the long table. 3 executives sat there like judges. The room smelled like polished wood and quiet danger. I didn't understand how things had gotten this far. One mistake, they said. One violation. But it wasn't true. I glanced at Mr. Grayson. He finally looked up, and for a second I saw it. Something close to a smirk. That was when it hit me. This wasn't a mistake. This was planned. Before we proceed, one of the executives said, "A senior board member will be joining us shortly." The door behind them slowly opened. I turned, and the moment I saw who walked in, my chest tightened, because I knew that face. 5 years ago, I had handed that man everything I had, and now he was about to decide my fate. Why was he here? And what was he going to do? 5 years earlier, no one noticed me. I was just another clerk in a gray office, filing papers, fixing small errors, staying late while others left early. My name is Elias Ward, but at work I was "Hey you" or sometimes nothing at all. My apartment was small. The heater made strange noises at night, and the paint on the walls was starting to peel. Still, it was mine. I kept things simple: bread, soup, and careful spending. But even then, I tried to help when I could. Every Friday, I bought an extra meal from a street stall near the station. Not for me, but for anyone who looked like they needed it more. Most people walked past those moments. I never could. That night it was raining hard. The kind of rain that soaks through your coat and settles into your bones. I saw him sitting by the edge of a closed shop, his back against the wall, his head low. He didn't ask for anything. That's why I stopped. I held out the warm food. "You look like you need this more than I do." He looked up slowly. Tired eyes. Quiet pain. "Thank you," he said. I didn't know it then. But that moment would follow me for years. I saw him again the next night. Same place. Same silence. But this time he looked worse. I sat beside him, careful not to push. "You haven't eaten, have you?" He shook his head. I handed him another meal, and this time he didn't hesitate. He ate like someone who hadn't in days. We didn't talk much, just short words. But something about him felt different. Not broken, just paused. Then, after a long silence, he spoke. "They're going to lock me out tomorrow." I turned to him. "What do you mean?" "My rent. I'm behind. 1 month. That's all it takes." I swallowed. I knew what that meant. Once you lose a place, everything else starts to fall apart. "I'll figure something out," he added quickly, almost like he regretted saying anything. I should have nodded and left. I didn't. "How much?" I asked. He hesitated, then told me. The number hit hard. That was almost everything I had saved. I laughed softly, shaking my head. "That's a lot." He nodded. "I know." Silence again. Then I said the words that would change everything. "I'll help." He stared at me. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." But deep down, I knew I was crossing a line I couldn't undo. The next morning, I withdrew the money. My hands shook as I counted it. Rent, food, safety, gone in one choice. I kept asking myself if I was being foolish. But every time I pictured him sitting in the rain, couldn't walk away. We met outside his building. It was old but clean. He stood straighter that day, like hope had given him strength. "You really came," he said. I said I would. We went inside together. I paid the landlord directly. No drama, no story, just numbers exchanged and a receipt handed over. 1 month. That's all I could give. When we stepped back outside, he looked at me like I had done something impossible. "Why?" he asked quietly. I didn't have a good answer. "Because someone should," I said. He nodded slowly, like he understood something deeper than my words. "I won't forget this," he said. I smiled. "You don't have to." But as I walked away, I felt something strange, like I had just set something into motion, and I had no idea where it would lead. The next day he was gone. No sign, no message, nothing. I went back to the building just to check. The landlord said the man had left early that morning. No forwarding address. No explanation. Felt unfinished. I stood there for a long time, holding the receipt in my pocket like it meant something more than paper. Part of me felt foolish. Maybe I had been naive. Maybe he had just taken the help and moved on. People do that. But another part of me didn't believe that. There was something in his eyes when he said thank you. Something real. Still, life didn't pause for questions. Rent was coming up again. For me this time. And now I had nothing saved. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at the ceiling, listening to the heater struggle. For the first time, I wondered if kindness had cost me too much. And I didn't know yet that the real cost hadn't even begun. The weeks that followed were hard. I started skipping meals. Not completely, but enough that hunger became familiar. A quiet companion that stayed in the background. At work, I took on extra shifts. More files, more hours, more silence. No one noticed. Or maybe they did. And chose not to care. There was one person who always seemed to notice, though. Caleb. He worked in the same department. Loud, confident, always quick with a joke. But never a kind one. "You look thinner," he said one afternoon, leaning against my desk. "Trying a new diet or just bad at money?" I forced a smile. "Just busy." He laughed. "Right? Busy being invisible." I didn't respond. It was easier that way. But then he started watching me more closely, questioning my work, pointing out small mistakes, turning others against me. It didn't make sense at first, until I realized something simple. Caleb didn't like people who stayed quiet. He liked control. And somehow, I had become his next target. First, it was small things. File missing. A number slightly off. A report returned with red marks. Careless. Caleb would say, loud enough for others to hear. I started double-checking everything. Then triple-checking. Still, problems kept appearing. It didn't feel like mistakes anymore. Felt planted. One afternoon, my supervisor called me in. "You've been slipping, Elias," she said, sliding a folder across the desk. I opened it. Errors. Pages of them. "I didn't make these," I said. She sighed. "That's not what the record shows." I looked up. "Who handles these files after me?" She hesitated, then said the name I already knew. "Caleb reviews them." Of course he did. I walked out of that office with something heavy sitting in my chest. This wasn't random. This was a pattern. And I was being set up. But the question was, why me? What had I done to make him choose me? It happened late one evening. Most people had already left. The office was quiet. The lights dimmed. I was finishing a report when I heard voices near the storage room. Caleb's voice. "He won't last much longer," he said. I froze. Another voice responded, lower, uncertain. "But what if he won't?" Caleb cut in. "People like him don't fight back." My hands tightened. People like him. Invisible. Quiet. Easy. I stepped closer, just enough to hear. "I just need one solid reason," Caleb continued. "One mistake that can't be ignored." My heart started racing. He wasn't just picking at me. He was building a case. Planning something bigger. I stepped back before they could notice me. My mind was spinning. I had to do something. But what? If I accused him without proof, I'd lose everything. If I stayed silent, I might still lose everything. I returned to my desk, staring at the screen without seeing it. For the first time, I felt trapped. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet thought began to form. Maybe this wasn't just about work anymore. Maybe something much worse was coming. It happened faster than I expected. One morning, I was called into a meeting. Not unusual. But when I walked in, the room felt wrong. Too quiet. Too formal. 3 managers sat across from me. Caleb stood near the wall, arms crossed. Watching. "We've reviewed your recent performance," one of them said. A folder slid toward me. I didn't need to open it. I already knew what was inside. "Multiple critical errors," she continued. "Data inconsistencies. Policy violations. I didn't do those," I said, trying to stay calm. Caleb shifted slightly, like he was enjoying the moment. The evidence suggests otherwise, she replied. Of course it did. Because the evidence had been built that way. We're placing you under formal investigation. The words landed heavy. Investigation. That meant suspension. Termination. Everything. I looked at Caleb. He met my gaze and smiled. Not wide. Just enough. That was all I needed to see. This wasn't about mistakes. This was about removal. And I was exactly where he wanted me. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything. Every file. Every moment. There had to be something I missed. Something real. Then I remembered. The storage system. Every file had a backup trail. Timestamps. Edits. If someone changed something after I submitted it, it would be there. I went back the next morning earlier than usual. The office was empty. Good. I logged in and started searching. One file. Then another. Then another. And there it was. Changes. Made after my submission. All under one name. Caleb. My heart started pounding. This was it. Proof. Real proof. I copied everything I could onto a small drive. Hands shaking. If I brought this forward, everything could change. But as I removed the drive, a thought hit me. If Caleb was careful enough to do this, what else had he prepared? And what would he do if he knew I found out? I didn't get the chance to act. By midday, I was called back in. This time, the tone was different. Sharper. New evidence has come forward. One of the executives said. My stomach dropped. That was fast. Too fast. A document appeared on the screen. An authorization log. With my name on it. Approving changes I had never seen. This confirms intent, she said. No, I replied quickly. That's not real. Caleb stepped forward. Are you saying the system is wrong? I looked at him. I'm saying someone changed it. Silence. Then a quiet laugh from him. That's a serious accusation. And suddenly I understood. He had gone further than I thought. He hadn't just edited files. He had rewritten the trail itself. My proof might not be enough. Until this is resolved, the executive said, you are suspended effective immediately. Suspended. Just like that. I walked out of the building with the drive in my pocket. And one terrifying realization in my mind. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. This was something deeper. Something dangerous. Days passed. No calls. No updates. Just silence. The kind that makes your thoughts louder. I started doubting everything. Even the proof I had. Then, one afternoon, something strange happened. A letter arrived. No return address. Just my name. Inside, there was a single card. Plain. Clean. With one line written on it. I told you I wouldn't forget. My breath caught. I read it again. Slowly. Carefully. There was no signature. But I knew. 5 years. Gone without a trace. And now, this? My hands trembled as I turned the card over. There was an address. And a time. Tomorrow. Evening. I stared at it for a long moment. This couldn't be coincidence. But it also didn't make sense. Why now? Why when everything was falling apart? I looked around my small apartment, the quiet pressing in. Then back at the card. Whatever this was, it was connected. And deep down, I knew one thing. If I didn't go, I might lose my only chance to understand what was really happening. The address led to a part of the city I had never visited. Clean streets, tall buildings, quiet in a different way. Not empty, controlled. I stood in front of the building, staring up. This wasn't normal. This wasn't random. I checked the time. Exactly as written. The doors opened before I could knock. A man in a dark suit stepped out. Elias Ward? He asked. I nodded slowly. This way. No explanation. No questions. Just certainty. I followed him inside. The air felt different. Cool. Still. Like everything inside had purpose. We walked through long halls past closed doors. Each step made my heart beat faster. Finally, we stopped. A large door stood in front of us. The man turned slightly. He's been expecting you. My throat went dry. He? I asked, but I already knew. The door opened. Light spilled out. And as I stepped forward, I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to believe until now. The man I helped 5 years ago was not who I thought he was, and whatever came next was going to change everything. The room was larger than I expected. Wide windows, clean lines, a quiet kind of power filled the space, and standing near the far end was him. The same man from the rain, but not the same at all. He stood straight now, dressed in a tailored suit, his presence calm but commanding. No trace of the broken figure I once knew. "You came," he said. His voice hadn't changed. "Of course I did," I replied, though my chest felt tight. He stepped closer. "You look like life hasn't been kind." I let out a dry breath. "It hasn't." His eyes studied me, like he already knew more than I had said. "I've been waiting for the right moment," he added. "Waiting for what?" I asked. "To return what you gave me," he said. I shook my head. "It was just 1 month of rent." He smiled faintly. "No, it was something much bigger." Before I could respond, he gestured toward a chair. "Sit. We need to talk." I hesitated, then sat, because something told me this wasn't just about the past anymore. And whatever he was about to say was connected to everything happening now. "My name is Adrian Voss," he said. The name meant nothing to me, but the way he said it, it felt like it should. "I wasn't always in that situation you found me in," he continued. "I used to run companies, big ones." I blinked. "What happened?" "A fall," he said simply. "Bad decisions. People I trusted turned on me." His gaze hardened slightly. "I lost everything. Reputation, power, control." I leaned forward. "And now I'm rebuilding." There was something steady in his voice. Not pride, not anger, control. "But why disappear?" I asked. "Why not say anything back then?" He paused. "Because I needed to know something first," he said. "What?" "If people like you still existed." The words landed heavier than I expected. "I didn't forget you, Elias," he added. I watched from a distance. My heart skipped. "You watched?" He nodded. "And when I saw what was happening to you recently, I stepped in." My breath caught. "Stepped in how?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached for a folder on the table and slid it toward me. "Let's just say, you're not as alone as you think." I opened the folder slowly. Inside were documents, screenshots, logs, more detailed than anything I had found. My eyes scanned the pages. File edits, access records, hidden overrides, all pointing to one person, Caleb. "This is..." I struggled to find the word. "This is everything. And more," Adrian said calmly. I looked up. "How did you get this?" "I have resources now," he replied. "People who know how to find the truth." My grip tightened on the papers. "This proves it," I said. "He set me up." "Yes," Adrian confirmed. Relief hit first, then something else. Fear. "If this is real, why hasn't it been used yet?" I asked. Adrian leaned back slightly. "Because timing matters." I frowned. "Timing?" He met my eyes. "Right now it's just evidence," he said. "But used correctly, it becomes something bigger." "Bigger how?" His expression didn't change. "It doesn't just clear your name," he said. "It exposes the system that allowed it." A chill ran through me. System. Not just Caleb. Something wider. Something deeper. And suddenly, I realized this wasn't just about saving my job anymore. "I can help you clear everything," Adrian said. I nodded quickly. "Then let's do it." He didn't move. "Not yet." My chest tightened. "What do you mean not yet?" "You've been targeted," he said. "But not just by Caleb." I frowned. "Then who else?" He slid another document toward me. Internal memos, names, approvals. My name appeared more than once. Marked, flagged. "Why would they do this?" I asked, confused. Adrian's voice lowered slightly. "Because you're easy to remove." The words stung, because they were true. Quiet. Honest. No alliances. He continued. People like you are perfect scapegoats. I leaned back, processing. So what do you want me to do? I asked. He held my gaze. Stay exactly where you are. I blinked. I'm suspended. Good, he said. That caught me off guard. Why is that good? Because now, he said calmly, they think they've already won. Silence filled the room. And when people think they've won, he added, they stop being careful. I swallowed. And that's when we expose everything. My heart started pounding again. This wasn't just help. This was strategy. And I had just stepped into something much bigger than I understood. The next few days felt unreal. I stayed home, waiting, watching, thinking. Adrian's plan was simple, but terrifying. Do nothing. Let them move first. Every hour felt longer than the last. My phone stayed silent. No updates, no calls, just the sound of my own thoughts. What if this didn't work? What if they pushed everything through before we could act? What if Adrian was wrong? Then, on the third day, I got a message. A company notice. A final hearing had been scheduled. My case. End of the week. My pulse quickened. This was it. I called Adrian immediately. They've set the date, I said. I know, he replied calmly. You knew. Yes, of course he did. What now? I asked. A pause. Then, now we let them present everything, he said. I frowned. And then, his voice sharpened slightly. Then we take it all away. I stared at the wall, my reflection faint in the window. This was really happening. I wasn't just defending myself anymore. I was walking into something designed to break me. But this time, I wasn't walking in alone. The day of the hearing arrived. The same building, the same cold air. But everything felt different now. I walked in slower, steadier. Not because I wasn't afraid, but because I finally understood what was at stake. Inside the room, they were already seated. Executives, managers, and Caleb. He glanced at me, surprised, then smiled again, confident, like nothing had changed. Elias Ward, one of them said. Take your place. I sat down. The process began. Evidence was presented. Documents, logs, everything carefully arranged. Every piece pointing at me. It was clean, convincing, almost perfect. Almost. I stayed quiet just like Adrian told me. Let them speak. Let them finish. Caleb even stepped forward at one point, explaining the errors. His voice steady, controlled, practiced. And when he finished, he looked at me, waiting, expecting me to panic, to fail, to break. But I didn't move, because I knew something he didn't. This wasn't the end of the story. It was just the moment before everything changed. Do you have anything to say in your defense? The question hung in the air. I stood slowly. Yes, I said. My voice didn't shake. Not this time. I do. I reached into my bag and placed the drive on the table. This contains a full audit trail, I continued. Original logs, not altered ones. A ripple moved through the room. Caleb's expression shifted just slightly. I noticed. May we review this? One executive asked. Please, I replied. The files were loaded. Screens changed. Numbers moved. And slowly, the truth began to appear. Real timestamps. Real edits. Real names. Caleb's name. Again. And again. And again. The room grew quiet. Heavy. Different. I watched Caleb. For the first time, he didn't look relaxed. He looked tense. This contradicts the previous records, one executive said. Yes, I replied. Because those records were changed. Silence. A long one. Then, who provided you with this data? Another executive asked. I paused. Adrian's voice echoed in my mind. Timing matters. So I said carefully, someone who believes the truth matters. And just like that, the balance in the room began to shift. The executives whispered among themselves. The calm control from earlier was gone, replaced by uncertainty. They started asking questions. Sharp ones, directed at Caleb. Can you explain these discrepancies? Caleb cleared his throat. There must be an error in the extraction. But the timestamps align, another pointed out, and the access logs confirm direct edits. I watched him carefully. He was thinking fast, trying to adjust. It's possible Elias manipulated. That's enough, one executive interrupted. That moment mattered. For the first time, he was being cut off. I felt something shift inside me. Not relief, not yet, but something close. Pressure lifting. More data was reviewed. More inconsistencies appeared. And each one chipped away at the story Caleb had built. Until finally, this requires further investigation, the lead executive said. Caleb's jaw tightened. We cannot proceed with termination at this stage. There it was. The first real break. I wasn't cleared, but I wasn't finished either. And Caleb was no longer untouchable. But as the meeting paused, I noticed something strange. One of the senior board members hadn't spoken at all. Just watched. Quiet. Still. Waiting. And something told me the biggest reveal hadn't happened yet. The room hadn't settled yet. Voices were still low, papers still shifting, tension still hanging thick in the air. But my attention moved to one place, the far end of the table. The man who hadn't spoken. Until now. I believe we've only seen part of the picture. His voice was calm, but it carried weight. The kind that makes people stop mid-sentence. Everyone turned, including Caleb. My chest tightened, because I knew that voice. Adrian. But here, he wasn't just Adrian. He sat at the head of the board. Not beside them. Above them. Mr. Voss, one executive said carefully. You've reviewed this? Yes, Adrian replied. Extensively. Caleb's confidence cracked. You were involved in this review? Adrian didn't even look at him. I've been observing this case for some time, he said. My pulse pounded. Observing. Not just recently. For longer. For clarity? Adrian continued, finally turning his gaze toward the room. This is no longer a simple misconduct case. Silence fell completely. It is now a matter of internal corruption. The words landed like a shockwave. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't fully understood until now. This wasn't just about clearing my name. This was about exposing something much bigger. And it was only just beginning. Adrian stood. Slow. Controlled. Every movement precise. There are patterns here, he said, gesturing to the screens. Not isolated actions. Repeated behavior. He pressed a button. New files appeared. Not mine. Other names. Other employees. My breath caught. These individuals, Adrian continued, were all flagged under similar circumstances. I leaned forward. Each case looked familiar. Errors. Blame. Quiet removals. My stomach dropped. This has been happening for years, he said. The room shifted again, this time deeper. This is speculation, Caleb snapped, trying to regain control. Adrian turned to him. No, he said evenly. This is documented. Another screen appeared. Internal approvals. Signed. Authorized. My eyes widened. Higher level management. Not just Caleb. People above him. This wasn't one man acting alone, Adrian said. It was enabled. The word echoed. Enabled. Silence followed. Heavy. Unavoidable. I felt something break inside me. Not fear this time. Understanding. I was never the real target. I was just part of a pattern. And now, that pattern was being dragged into the light. But the worst part? Adrian wasn't finished yet. Everything unraveled fast after that. Questions turned into accusations. Accusations turned into orders. Audits. Reviews. Immediate suspensions. Names I had only seen in emails were now being called out loud. Removed. Escorted out. Caleb tried to speak again. This is being twisted. Enough, Adrian said. This time his voice cut through everything. Final. Your access has been revoked, one executive added. Caleb froze. You can't do this, he snapped, but the confidence was gone. Security stepped forward. And just like that, He was no longer in control. As he was led out, he looked at me, not with arrogance, not with power, but with something else. Desperation. "You think you've won?" he said under his breath. I didn't answer, because this was never about winning. It was about truth. And truth had finally caught up. When the door closed behind him, the room felt different, lighter, cleaner, like something heavy had been removed. But then Adrian turned to me and said something I wasn't expecting. "This still isn't the end for you." My heart skipped. If this wasn't the end, then what came next? The room slowly emptied. One by one, people left, some shaken, some silent, until it was just me and Adrian. He walked over and stood across from me. "No one should have to fight that hard just to be believed," he said. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "I almost didn't make it," I admitted. "But you did," he replied. He placed a folder in front of me. "This is your reinstatement," he said. "Effective immediately." I blinked. "And more," he added. I opened it. A new role. Higher level. More responsibility. More voice. I looked up. "Why me?" His answer came without hesitation. "Because when I had nothing, you gave without asking what you'd get back." Silence filled the space. "The kind that means something. Kindness doesn't disappear, Elias," he said. "It waits." I swallowed, feeling the weight of everything finally settle. 5 years. One choice. One moment. And now, this. As I stepped out of that building, the world felt different. Not easier, but clearer. And if you're listening to this, remember this. The smallest act of kindness can echo louder than the biggest act of power. You may not see the result today, but that doesn't mean it isn't coming. If this story meant something to you, share it, because someone out there needs to believe that good still comes back around.